And guys, welcome back to the Sports Wrap right here on TV 38 WRWR. I'm your host, Leland Ragin, alongside Craig Lawson. We're getting ready to jump right into this high school football, and we had some Northside High School playoff action, some semifinal action tonight, last night, excuse me.
Yeah.
Craig, what you got for us?
That's right. Northside, a hard-fought game last night. We're going to go to the highlights right now. Here we go. The main player of the game for Ware County, Xavier Tobler. Huge run to start off the game for Ware County. Quarterback Johnson is going to drop back and hit Tobler with the screen pass. He's going to take it all the way in, twisting in for the touchdown. Ware County up on the board first. They're going to go up 7-0. Northside now. Glenn Smith drops back to pass and throws complete. That is Keyshawn Hill. Nice run there by Keyshawn. That's going to end the first quarter, though. 7-0. Ware County is up, so Northside needs to make a comeback here as Glenn Smith will drop off to Curtis Martin. Nice run there by Martin. And Smith on the keeper here will go up the middle for a great touchdown run. Glenn Smith, he's been doing that all year, such a strong runner for the Eagles. So second quarter score is 7-7. And Glenn Smith here is going to be picked off by a Ware County defensive back. And that's going to lead to actually fumbled the ball, but they ended up getting it back. So Johnson's going to take the snap here and dump off across the middle to the tight end. And that's going to set up a Ware County field goal attempt. And that is going to bring our halftime score, actually. It'll be 10-7. Ware County up over Northside at the half. Now, Northside's been in this position before. In fact, last week they were. And here goes Keyshawn Hill on that option play, the speed option that Northside loves to run out of the spread shotgun set. Big yards there for Keyshawn. And the handoff this time is going to go to Curtis Martin. And Glenn Smith getting out in front and making a nice block there. And Curtis Martin with the big gainer. It's going to set up John Tigner for a field goal attempt to use the backup. Isaac Rivera has been hurt for the past couple weeks and just off the upright. Tigner played a great game tonight, did a great job punting. Now it's really his only miscue of the night. So Ware County gets the ball back. And Johnson across the middle. Huge completion for Ware County. And they're going to hand it off to Tobler once again. And here he goes. This is the play of the game, ladies and gentlemen. As he goes, and look at this run. Stays on his feet. Gets in the end zone. 17-7 now. Northside down by 10 points in the third quarter. They were in this position last week in the second half against Tucker. Could they come back? And here's Glenn Smith going to work. This is before he actually went to work. That was another interception. Now Glenn Smith's going to go to work. Keyshawn Hill on the out route. He was hitting these under routes because Ware County's playing, deep zone and just allowing them the underneath stuff. And they were taking it. Glenn Smith kept hitting it.
Kind of like what we saw with Georgia in that game.
Exactly. Just like with the Georgia-Alabama game, they let him get right down to the goal line. And here's Keyshawn Hill again. The cameraman kind of missed it because Keyshawn's so fast. Another completion. And here's Glenn Smith. And they'll actually score. Touchdown pass to Justin Burnham here. 14-7. Now there's 20 seconds left in the game. So you would think it's over. Here's John Tigner. Backup kicker again. Look at this onside kick. I mean, it bounces down to the 30. Looks like Ware County has it. Somehow Northside comes out of the pile. I mean, talk about a team that never gives up.
With great field position. They're sitting out on the 24-yard line.
Now, remember, Tigner missed the earlier field goal attempt. This is a 42-yard field goal for the backup kicker. What a huge – he makes it with like 7 seconds to go, so they still have to kick off.
The big thing for me would have been the fact that if he hadn't missed that one, they probably wouldn't have had to go in the extras in overtime.
Right. Now, Tobler gets around the end right here. Important to note, Austin Roberts got kicked out of the game, so they're able to get the edge. And Tobler goes in for the score here. Now, you'll see one of the Northside defenders, I believe it's Trey Payne, runs at the official. He gets a 15-yard penalty, so they start off 15 yards farther back than they would have, and they come out throwing the ball. This is Shelton Lane on the reception here, and here's the last play of the game, 4th and 6. And it looks like we had two Northside receivers run into each other there, trying to get to the ball like Burnham and Davis. So that's how it ends, folks. Northside goes down for the second straight year in the semifinals.
Celebration there in Waycross. And again, great season for Coach Kevin Kinsler and the Northside Eagles. Looks like it was they did too little Curtis Martin. Curtis Martin was kind of the one who kind of in the game against Tucker brought them back and helped kind of, after they were worn down later in the game, But go ahead.
I think turnovers were the difference here. Glenn Smith
course.
had a couple of interceptions, and Northside got put in situations where they had to run the ball. So I think that's ultimately what did them in, because they would have been able to wear this team down. Tobler, the running back for Ware County, is also their starting middle linebacker and played the whole game. So this kid, I mean, what a motor he has.
Yeah, he had to be exhausted as well. All right, let's jump right into some 6A action, and we're going to go up to Lovejoy, where Lovejoy was playing North Cobb. And right here, you're going to see the North Cobb quarterback drop back, and looks like it's going to be a pick six by defensive back Montrell Curtis. Takes it back all the way about 65 yards. This will put Lovejoy up 35-21 in this game, and this is a high-scoring game, guys. Lovejoy ends up winning this game 63-42 in this game, and also as well, Norcross obviously will beat Colquitt County. They will obviously move on and play Lovejoy. Norcross will play Lovejoy in that game. My apologies. Go ahead, Chris.
Big win, and we'll take you back to the 5A bracket. We already showed you that Northside was defeated by Ware County by a score of 24-17. Also in 5A, Gainesville with a big win over Whitewater, 28-14, but that game wasn't as close as it seemed, as Gainesville pretty much dominated all the way through. Yeah,
that was a huge matchup, and I'm telling you right now, again, we talked about the fact that cream rising to the top, and obviously it is happening all over semifinal football right now. 3A action, you had obviously Buford facing Cartersville in the semifinals. My good friend Brian Jordan, his son there at Buford. Buford defensive back Thomas Wilson.
This is Sandy Creek right here. Sandy Creek, and this is Carl Lane, fumble recovery touchdown. Pardon me. This is 4A, Sandy Creek. Sandy Creek won 35-0, and we'll go ahead and get to that bracket right now. Where Marist also went down against Ridgeland 28-27. Now we'll go to 3A.
Yeah, my bad, guys. Again, it's been a long weekend. I also want to give a big shout out to my uncle, who I lost this past week, Wayne Ragin. I want to let him know we're laying him to rest later on today. I love you, bro. Anyway, that's kind of why I'm kind of off kilter today.
Yeah,
but 3A action right now, Buford versus Cartersville. And again, defensive back, Buford defensive back, Thomas Wilson with a big hit on the Cartersville receiver. Basically, Buford having a great opportunity to win this game. They beat Cartersville 21-10. On the other side of the bracket, North Hall loses to St. Pius. You've got Buford, St. Pius in the state championship game in 3A.
On to 2A now. The Jefferson Dragons against Greater Atlanta Christian. Actually, we're going to have the highlights of Calhoun and Lamar County. Calhoun boasts one of the Georgia Gatorade State Player of the Year, but the highlight actually is going to go to Lamar County. Antoine Wallace, the 12-yard run here for the touchdown, but Lamar County would go on to lose. We'll continue on here as Jefferson also went on to beat GAC 42-14. So Calhoun, who we've seen there a lot recently, will face Jefferson in the state championship game in 2A.
All right, in 1A public school action, Lincoln County faced Dooley County, and all you guys in Dooley County, again, I know you're excited, Vienna, Unadilla, you guys put off a big victory, 10-7. Dooley County moves on to the state championship. Then Emmanuel County Institute, ECI, faces Wilcox County. I hate the guys over at Wilcox lost, but they lose 38-27. Now you've got a Dooley County ECI state championship. In private school 1A, you had Prince Avenue beat will face Eagles Landing Christian. They beat Landmark Christian 32-22, and George Walton actually loses to Eagles Landing Christian 27-14.
Well, there were a lot of great recruits that are playing. Deshaun Watson is a guy to watch out of Gainesville. A great player.
A lot of blue chippers in playing in the semifinals. A
lot of blue chippers.
Matter of fact, we talked a couple weeks ago to my good friend Dallas Jackson with Rivals.com, and he basically came out and said, out of all the states in this beautiful, great United States of America, the state of Georgia was #1 for high school football. So that says a lot for the state of Georgia.
That's crazy, and you got guys like Shaq Wiggins and Damari Kitt coming out of Sandy Creek and just all over the place.
Yep, Norcross has Alvin Kamara, who's trying to figure out whether or not he's going to commit to Alabama or Georgia. Sandy Creek, like you said, Shaq Wiggins, lineman Alan Knott. Also, Alan Knott is already committed to South Carolina. You've got up in 6A, Lovejoy obviously has a plethora of guys right now. Alejandro Benefield, offensive tackle, he's going to UT Chattanooga. Tight end A.J. Jackson also going to Auburn, and wide receiver Jamichael Ramos, going to Georgia Tech.
Don't forget about my Travius Adams down in Dooley County. They're still alive.
And the player of the year down in 2A?
That's Taylor Lamb, Calhoun. We just talked about him earlier. 3,150 yards and 300 yards and 3,150 yards passing and 300 yards rushing with 11 touchdowns.
All right, you guys stick with us. We're going to come back and talk a little high school basketball action right here in the local area. Then we're going to jump right into some college basketball right here on the Sports Wrap, TV 38 WRWR. We'll be back. And welcome back to the Sports Wrap right here on TV 38 WRWR. Again, I'm your host, Leland Ragin. We want to make sure you guys get an opportunity to get into the discussion by giving us a call. 478-345-1500. That's 478-345-1500 is the number to dial the show. We have some big action in high school basketball this past week. We want to make sure you guys get up to date and abreast. Huge game over at Veterans High School where the Rutland Hurricanes faced the Veterans Warhawks. It was an outstanding basketball game. 85-80. Obviously, Rutland jumped all over Veterans early on in the game. 11-0 was that score. They actually took it to a 41-26 lead at the half, but Veterans actually had an opportunity to battle back, come back, and try to get a big victory in Region 2 Class 4A, but to no avail. The Rutland Hurricanes win a huge game, and obviously Coach Ron Christian had some great things to say about his squad. But you got some standout players on that team, not too many better than Trayvon Ogletree. He has had an outstanding season over there. He was one of the linchpins also to the Rutland Hurricanes, beating up on Northside earlier actually late last week against the Northside Eagles. So not a good day in basketball, obviously not a good week in basketball for a few of the local teams. Northside and Veterans all fall to obviously some region rivals as well. Also, this past week, Westside High School beats Mary Persons in the opener of their region basketball play. That was some interesting action going on as well. This has become a huge rivalry. These two teams have become teams that have hated each other in this region since this region has been realigned. You've got some very good basketball that's going to be played in that region. That Region 2 Class 4A, that Veterans High School and Perry High are in, is going to be a tough region for those guys to play in because you've got Baldwin County, you've got Mary Persons, you've got Howard High, which is actually unlike football, they actually have a decent basketball program. You've got Veterans High, Perry High, Rutland, all in that same division and same region. It's going to be an interesting season. Don't forget West Lawrence over in Dublin. They historically have had some outstanding basketball as well that they've played. Also earlier this week, Westside beat Central 61-50 in some big play. Westfield beat Windsor Academy 48-38 in action over there. And obviously that GISA action is going to be heating up as the season goes on. You have Macon Area Christian 76 over CFCA 20. Also Southwest beat Howard High School 57-50 in some more action as well. All right, you got some great action. Also, we don't want to forget the women's basketball action that's going on all over Middle Georgia area. Dublin 66-51 over West Lawrence. A nice little rivalry, in-county rivalry as well. But this past week as well, on Tuesday night, had a lot more action going on in the local area and a little bit of GISA action as well. Stratford beat Windsor 79-40 in that action as well. We also want to make sure you guys get an opportunity. We don't want to forget the Middle Georgia Technical College men's and women's basketball team. Huge game this past Tuesday night. They played a tough game at Middle Georgia Technical College over at the campus of MGTC at the new gymnasium over there. Did Central Georgia Tech and Middle Georgia Tech. The irony in that whole thing is these two schools are merging. There'll be one entity next season. Looks like teams were playing for supremacy and dominance, maybe to see who's going to stay around on some of these merged teams. Middle Georgia Tech wins that game 72-68 this past week. They've got another one. They'll be in action to this evening or this afternoon at 2 o'clock and at 4 o'clock, where we'll have Military Appreciation Day over at Central Georgia Technical College. They will play Middle Georgia Tech. And again, Military Appreciation Day, meaning all military personnel, their families and kids are all free. You guys get a chance to get an opportunity to go check that game out. That is an exciting game. It was rocking in Warner Robins when those two teams played as well. Also, at the University Center up at Mercer University, the Mercer Bears will face Alabama A&M. This should be, actually, you'll be surprised, people. Alabama A&M has a very good team this year. This Alabama A&M team looks like they've got a little height and a little length. Obviously, you've got some great talent on that team. You can watch that game right here on TV 38 WRWR. Todd Wilson, Brandon Evans will be making the call on that game as well. We want you guys to be a part of it and be a part of the games by going to the University Center up in Macon and being a part of what Mercer has, www.mercer.edu. That's mercer.edu. All right, guys, that was our high school and college basketball wrap-up in the area. We'll try to get a little bit later on, we'll try to get a little Fort Valley State University information, as well as talk to Coach Lonnie Bartley from the Lady Wildcats down at Fort Valley State University. He's a Hall of Famer. We'll definitely try to get Lonnie in with us a little bit later on in the weeks to come. Right here on the Sports Wrap, TV 38 WRWR. Coming up next, we'll talk a little Heisman Trophy, see who's going to win and possibly win the Heisman Trophy with our good friend Brandon Evans right here from TV 38, the sports anchor, right here on TV 38 WRWR with the Sports Wrap with Leland Ragin. We'll be back. And welcome back to the Sports Wrap right here, TV 38 WRWR. I'm your host, Leland Ragin, alongside the TV 38 sports anchor, Brandon Evans. Brandon, how you doing today?
Doing great. Glad to be here. I got a cup of coffee here. Ashley Furniture. Excited to talk about some Heisman football. All
right, and we also would like to thank Flint Electric also for their, obviously, great support of this show as well. First and foremost, obviously, we wanted to get into a few discussions as well, but first I want you guys, if you want to be a part of the discussion, you can give us a call, 345-1500. That's 345-1500, or you can follow me on Twitter at Leland Ragin or Brandon at Brandon Evans ATL. All right. The finalists are in right now. We know who's going to be traveling up to New York to be a part of the Heisman ceremonies that's going to be held tonight at 8 p.m. We want you guys obviously to tune in as well and see who, we want to know also who you think your favorites will be in this. We've got Notre Dame's Manti Te'o. We've got him as defensive player, one of the first players obviously ever to be considered as a defensive player alone, not a two-sport player or either side player, kind of like we saw with Charles Wilson when he won at Michigan. You're going to also have Johnny Football Manziel from the Texas A&M Aggies, and Colin Klein, the standout quarterback for the Kansas State, obviously Wildcats, right? Anyway, but what we want to look at right now is we want to do a little analysis real quick. I need your thoughts. What do you think about Manti Te'o's obviously being a part of this Heisman Trophy and being a finalist here?
I think that if he wins, it'll be basically a kind of a landmark. Well, no matter really who wins, unless Colin Klein wins, it's really going to be kind of a landmark Heisman, because with Manti Te'o being exclusively a defensive player, he does, I think, have 7 interceptions. But if you look at his numbers compared to someone locally here, Jarvis Jones for Georgia, you know, Jarvis Jones, about the same amount of tackles, more tackles for a loss, more forced fumbles. So just to be a defensive player, not play any offense, I think it's really tough. But he's obviously a great player. The thing about the Heisman is the most valuable player, the best college player for that year. So, you know, if you take all those things into account, it's, you know, do you want me to tell you who I want to go with, or do you want to talk more about it?
Well, we'll talk a little bit more in depth. I actually think when we look at this Manti Te'o situation, I actually think Jarvis Jones Jadeveon Clowney would be, those two guys would be much more suitable defensive candidates for the Heisman Trophy as opposed to Manti Te'o. I'm not saying that the kid is not an unbelievable player on the #1 defense in college football. What I'm saying is he the most exceptional player on his team or in college football as a defensive player? And at this point, I'd say no. I would take a Jadeveon Clowney or even a Jarvis Jones ahead of him just based on the things they were able to do as far as forced fumbles, sacks, tackles, things like that, and the impact that they've had on the game. You could literally say Jarvis Jones single-handedly won that Florida game for them early this year.
That's true, but Manti Te'o is probably the most valuable player to that defense. He's not the most dominant player like a Jadeveon Clowney. That guy is just dominant, and he's going to also be playing on Sunday, as well as Jarvis Jones. But if you look at the most valuable player to the #1 team, and sometimes it goes to the best player on the best team, and right now Notre Dame #1, Manti Te'o is the best player on that team. That's why I think he's a finalist.
And that's the only reason I think he's a finalist right now is because he is a part of the #1 team in the nation. All right, we'll move to Kansas State, where Colin Klein has had an outstanding season. But is it a Heisman Trophy worthy season this year when you look at what his body of work totally? I think what everyone is looking at right now is his total body of work as opposed to just this season.
Yeah, he's been, kind of a career guy at Kansas State. And take away the Baylor game this year, he has probably the most impressive quarterback resume of any quarterback in the last few years. But they didn't have a Big 10, or I'm sorry, Big 11 or whatever, Big 9, whatever they are now, the former Big 12. They didn't have a Big 12 championship game this year, so he didn't get that extra game to really prove that he was the best Heisman candidate this year. And when he had a big moment, it was against Baylor, he kind of choked. So I don't think Klein is 1 or 2 in this Heisman race.
So you think he actually is in a situation where he could possibly, you think he shouldn't have even possibly been in here?
I think he should be there, but I would maybe even put him behind Marquise Lee.
Okay, well, Lee, who was at, obviously, USC, the wide receiver at USC. Let me ask you this question. Why wasn't, well, you put one name out there. Why wasn't a Marquise Lee or someone like that? Do you think there should have been more people invited? I liked when there were 5 or 6 guys in there and you really didn't know who the Heisman Trophy was going to go to. The year you had Randy Moss, Peyton Manning, and those guys. There was Charles Woodson in there. Literally, you had some unbelievable players. Think about those names we just said.
Wow.
Charles Woodson, yeah. Peyton Manning, and Randy Moss on the same stage, along with 2 or 3 other players.
All Hall of Famers.
All Hall of Fame players right now. I want to see that again. I want to see that kind of buzz because you never knew who was going to win that. And at this point right now, you don't know who's going to win it. But give me a name or two that you think could have possibly been added to this Heisman situation that was left off.
Well, there was a couple of guys. If you look at, the quarterback for Ohio State, his name is leaving me right now.
Yeah, he's left me as well. They're on probation.
But Marquise Lee, if USC had not lost as many games as they did, you basically see the Heisman voting always being one of the best players on one of the better teams, which is why you have a 1-loss Kansas State team in there, which is why you have Notre Dame in there. This is why you don't have someone like a Jadeveon Clowney or a Jarvis Jones in there. Why you don't have even someone like Aaron Murray, whose numbers are pretty comparable to Klein.
Right.
Now I think they got the right 3 guys in there. I think those are the right 3 guys compared to teams like USC, which lost some significant games, Oregon, which had multiple players that were considered most valuable players. I think they did actually get the right 3 guys in there, though. I really do.
Well, I think guys like Lee could have been involved, as well as a Barner up at Oregon, who was an unbelievable player and an athlete. I think there have been a couple players. I believe Jarvis Jones should have been one of those guys who was in the mix as well for a Heisman Trophy candidate. Again, we'll see this. Obviously, we'll see who wins later on tonight. But lastly but not least, Johnny Football Manziel, Texas A&M, outstanding redshirt freshman quarterback. And to me, this is my Heisman Trophy winner for this season. This kid has been lights out. No, they didn't win the SEC. No, they didn't even win the SEC West. But they beat the best. They beat the team right now and gave them the only loss that they have on this season in Alabama, that's playing for a national championship right now, and he did it in dramatic fashion. This kid made things happen, and that's how you win a Heisman, and he did it at the right time of the season. I like what he's done at Texas A&M.
Yeah, I think actually we agree on this one. I think Johnny Manziel, that guy, if you look at his numbers, very comparable to what Tim Tebow and Cam Newton both did during their Heisman campaigns.
Yeah, he's got better numbers.
Right,
Both.
but this guy is a freshman. Now, what the thing about the Heisman is, it's not the best player on the best team. It's not the best upperclassman. It is the best college football player for this season. Period. And I think you're right. Johnny Manziel, Johnny Football. I think he had the marketing campaign going for him. He did, look back at those games. I did go back and look at the Florida game and the LSU game. Not spectacular games, but they were early in the year, late in the year. He, very much like Robert Griffin last year, played very well down the stretch, made some huge plays with his arms and his legs. Very electric player. That's what I think is going to get the Heisman votes, and I think he is the next Heisman contender right there.
And when Manziel was interviewed earlier this past week, he likened himself to a couple players that most people wouldn't have thought of, Doug Flutie and Michael Vick. He said he tried to liken his game and his ability to move in and out of the pocket to Michael Vick, a guy that he admired growing up. So, hey, we just hopefully you'll have a little bit better career and post-career than Michael.
Both those guys, there's no shame in being like either one of those guys. At this point, though, really the sky's the limit for Johnny Manziel. So if he wants to model himself after Mike Vick, I hope he tries to sprinkle in a little more Flutie, or else he might end up with a concussion, not being able to pass some tests in the NFL as well.
Exactly. All right, Brandon Evans, you guys can follow him again at Brandon Evans ATL on Twitter. You can follow me, Leland Ragin, at Leland Ragin on Twitter as well. We want you guys to also make sure you get in the discussion by giving us a call, 345-1500. That's 345-1500. Brandon's going to come back with me a little bit later on in the show, and we're going to do a little NFL pick'em as we've done. I think I've got a little trash to talk with you this week as well. I think I was flawless this week on my picks. All right, right here on the Sports Wrap, TV 38 WRWR, we'll have Craig Lawson coming up with us next to run down these college picks and these college bowls, as well as we'll talk about some new faces in new places, coaches being hired all over college football. We'll be back. All right, guys, welcome back to the Sports Wrap right here on TV 38 WRWR. I'm your host, Leland Ragin, alongside Craig Lawson right now, our trusty, obviously. Listen, he's our fantasy guy. He's our pick'em guy. Craig has been in here, and he's been winning. You've been winning some games and picks this past week.
I'm just happy to be here, man. Just happy to be here. Ride your coattails.
Man, no, not riding mine. I tell you, we're loving the beard right now. We're both kind of rocking the beard. We had this thing going on until babyface Brad decided to shave his all off in there. But our producer guys, you don't want to see that. It's not a pretty sight. Anyway, we want you guys to give us a call at 345-1500. That's 345-1500 is the number to dial the show. We're going to talk right now about we've got the BCS matchups are all set and the national championship game. I want to start out with, obviously, there's going to be a little irony, and we'll talk about it a little bit later on in the show. We'll start with the Sugar Bowl, and kind of the storyline underneath the underlying theme of this game is Florida versus Louisville. You've got Big East champion in Louisville versus Florida, but Louisville head coach Charlie Strong, defensive coordinator for the national champions under Urban Meyer and Tim Tebow with Florida. It's going to be an interesting matchup in New Orleans.
Guys, like you said, storylines here. Charlie Strong is one of the main reasons that Florida was able to win championships with his defense. And he's a great defensive mind, and he's really gone to Louisville and got that program, and they've won the Big East for whatever that's worth. I mean, it's not a great conference, but if you go there, turn the program around, you win the conference. That's to be commended. Not sure how long he'll be there. People are talking about him, potentially maybe getting a job elsewhere.
Tennessee's name
Tennessee,
has come up quick,
is the one that's kind of up there.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I think Florida's a lot more talented of a team, and I think the only way that they'll lose this game is if they just kind of don't care about the matchup.
Well, if they just don't show up to the game,
yeah,
1 or 2,
right. I mean, because we see that from time to time. A lot of times, this is going to be a big game for Louisville. They're playing against the SEC, and Florida is probably a little bit disappointed that they didn't get to play in the SEC championship game and have a shot to move on to the national championship. But I think that there wasn't a huge letdown there because they saw it coming the whole time. So I think Florida's going to want to show up and make a statement here going into next season. And I think that they'll handle Louisville pretty handily.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very obviously in one-sided affair. I think obviously with Louisville actually just beating Rutgers to win that championship
Right.
as well, that Big East championship again, for whatever weight that carries. Obviously, Charlie Strong having an opportunity right now. It looks like Louisville is trying to offer him an extension right now. We'll see what happens with that, but who knows?
Well, and Brad mentioned real quick that our producer, that the last time Florida played a Big East team in the Sugar Bowl, it was Cincinnati, and they actually absolutely took them to the woodshed. Now, it was a different team, different time, but I think the result's going to be very similar.
And it hurts the ratings as well. Well, another game that's not going to be a rating getter, Florida State ACC champion versus MAC champion Northern Illinois, who is actually getting in this game as an at-large bid. But another storyline coming from this game, obviously Dave Gorin, who is the was the head coach at Northern Illinois, is leaving to take another job.
Right.
Just kind of interesting. You know, I don't like these guys not coaching out their bowl games.
Well, Northern Illinois has kind of been a jumping off point. Coach Jerry Kill also came from Northern Illinois, but they just haven't been able to keep their coaches around, and I don't believe they deserve to be in this game. I think they've had a great season. You know, their players should be happy with what they did. They lost to Kent State, though. Kent State was potentially a BCS buster. We saw Kent State, though, earlier this year. They got blown out by Kentucky, who's one of the worst teams in the SEC. So I really don't believe that just by the talent of their team and the way that they've played, they've won the games they needed to win, but I don't think they deserve to be in this game. It's not going to be a high ratings game. Nobody wants to see this game. Now, I give them a shot, though, because again, it's one of those games where Florida State, they're not interested in playing Northern Illinois. They don't have anything to prove against Northern Illinois. This means everything to Northern Illinois.
It's like what we saw with Alabama in the bowl game a few years ago.
Utah, right.
When they played Utah, and we saw the outcome of that game as well. Next, we're going to jump to Oregon versus K-State. Big 12 champion K-State right now. They didn't have a Big 12 championship game,
right.
Not giving Colin Klein an opportunity to display himself on that last game. But this is going to be maybe the best matchup of the entire BCS Bowl series.
I believe so. Outside of the national championship game, this might be the only one to actually even watch it all, because we're going to see the offensive Oregon, and then we're going to see Colin Klein do what he does. And Kansas State has had a good defense outside of that Baylor game. They've been really good at causing turnovers, and special teams is really great for Kansas State as well. So just a lot of team speed. I think Oregon is going to have the advantage speed-wise, and even defensively. I think Oregon has better players overall, but this is a very intriguing matchup, and I'm interested to watch this game.
I am as well, obviously, and I'm excited for Bill Snyder. Coach Snyder, obviously, guys, again, comes out of retirement, comes back, takes this team to a BCS game. Basically, is going to earn his school $20+ million in revenue. That program. You can imagine how happy the boosters and the administrative staff at the athletic department in Kansas State are to have Coach Snyder back. Rose Bowl, which usually is a very good game as well, Pac-12 versus Big Ten champion. This game is actually the only game, the BCS game at all, that has a conference champion playing on either side.
From an AQ conference.
An AQ conference that's on either side playing in this game. Stanford, the Pac-12, Wisconsin, the Big Ten. But Wisconsin head coach Brett Bielema leaving, going to Arkansas. We'll talk about that in a minute. Go ahead.
Well, that's really interesting. You got the lame duck coach, or is he going to hang around and coach? So we'll find that out, I guess, as it goes on. This is, like you said, it's the only game that has legitimate conference champions from AQ conferences. So we'll see. I really like Stanford. They're a team that, to me, you kind of counted out early because they lost to Notre Dame because they said the running back didn't get in the end zone, even though it looked to me like he did. And I think they're going to come out and have something to prove under Coach David Shaw. And I really like the way this team's playing, and they're so disciplined on defense.
They are very disciplined on defense, and obviously this is going to be one of the better matchups as well. Is this Rose Bowl? You guys get an opportunity to watch the Parade of Roses. That's always a great experience as well, and for leading up to this game. Then we've got our BCS National Championship, which is set. Alabama, who wins a heartbreaker over our Georgia Bulldogs with seconds left on the clock. Anyway, versus Notre Dame and Heisman Trophy candidate Manti Te'o. This is going to be a very good game. The 1 and 2 defenses in the nation facing off against each other.
Yeah, I really think Alabama has the advantage just in the speed department. Notre Dame, they're big, they're physical, a lot like a Big Ten team or like a Stanford team. They're very, very similar to Stanford. They've had a bit of a quarterback carousel. I think they've kind of decided in Everett Golson that he's kind of going to be the guy going forward. He's more of a dual threat. He can run it, he can throw it, and he seems to – some people have said he's almost too young to know the magnitude of what's going on, so he just doesn't seem to make mistakes. I like Alabama to have a good shot going forward in this game just because they're going to have more team speed, I believe, just more physical. It's going to be the most physical opponent Notre Dame has seen all year. But, this is what everybody wanted. I didn't want it because obviously I wanted the Dogs to get in,
right.
But this is what the country wanted to see. Notre Dame, Alabama, two of the most storied programs in the history of college football.
Yeah, and I picked this championship matchup a few weeks ago, but obviously I would have loved to see our Georgia Bulldogs in this game. Guys, that's our BCS matchups for getting the bowl set. We'll wait, obviously, until next week to start running down. There's so many bowl games that are going on. We'll start next week, obviously, running those games and those particular bowls down, and we'll actually do our picks in those games. But first, before we get out of here, we'd like to mention, obviously, to talk a little bit about, looks like some coaches, the coaches carousel. We talked about Bielema taking the job at
Arkansas. So that's it. That's interesting. I didn't see that coming up. It's interesting because, Brett Bielema kind of had some beef with Urban Meyer this year, and he made a comment with his recruiting tactics and said, we don't want to be anything like the SEC. He kind of downed the SEC in their tactics. Well, now he's going to be going up against Les Miles and Nick Saban in the West, and then, programs on the upswing.
Kevin
Sumlin, who, have one of the, in my opinion, I would say that he's the coach of the year, the way he turned that program around. And just even guys like Hugh Freeze and Dan Mullen that are in Mississippi that have those programs playing better. So he's going to have his work cut out for him. I think Bielema was a good coach, though. He's got good talent in Wisconsin. I think he's going to be able to attract it as well to Arkansas, but it's interesting.
Well, here's the thing. I wish Kevin Sumlin would have had an opportunity, obviously, to win that as well. Brian Kelly, the Home Depot Coach of the Year. He's been named the Home Depot Coach of the Year this year. So congratulations to Notre Dame head coach, Coach Brian Kelly. Obviously, he's a deserving candidate as well. Looks like Kentucky goes down and robs the coffers again. The SEC stealing from the ACC again. Georgia takes, Mark Richt from Florida State. Now it looks like Kentucky is taking the offensive and defensive coach. They're getting Coach Stoops coming from Florida State. That's going to be an interesting situation. He's going to go up to Kentucky and play in the SEC. I think, again, it's going to be just an opportunity for him to get some head coaching experience.
I saw a tweet that said that Mark Stoops has been demoted to Kentucky's head coach. But that's funny, and that's not nice to say. But I think that Kentucky's a program that we've seen have some success. They had Andre Woodson, they had Jared Lorenzen, the Pillsbury throw boy, guys like Artos Penner in the past. So I think that if they can come down, they get these kids out of Atlanta that go up there and play. And I believe that Mark Stoops is going to have that basis to be able to recruit. And I think that program is going to get a lot better. I hate to see, Joker Fields just wasn't able to turn it around up there, but I think that
Joker will get a job real soon.
Yeah,
I promise
I think
you.
so.
Maybe not a head coaching job, but he'll get a job.
He'll be on somebody's staff
real soon. He could be on the staff down there at Auburn coming up right here real soon. Looks like an old face in the old place.
Right.
And Gus Malzahn, former offensive coordinator with the national champion Auburn Tigers, leaves Arkansas State after one season and comes after a 9-3 season,
right,
and comes back to Auburn to take the head coaching job of his former coach, Gene Chizik. That's going to be I think that's a good move for Auburn.
Things just work out for this guy. You got to think of not too long ago, this guy was a high school coach coaching Mitch Mustain and Damian Williams. He gets the job at Arkansas because, he was dominating in high school, so he gets on to Houston Nutt staff at Arkansas. And then he ends up being the offensive coordinator at Auburn, wins the national championship. I thought, it's definitely a downswing to go to Arkansas State, but he won 9 games there. Chizik's out. He's back in Auburn. They're calling it the Gus bus, and they're, his offense, the hurry-up offense. And half the Auburn fan base is excited about this. Half of them aren't sure because they think that maybe the defense is starting to figure out this hurry-up offense. But I think that for Auburn, they've won a national championship with him. I think it's probably a good hire for them. We'll see how it goes. But
what most people didn't realize either is Gus Malzahn, very good recruiter.
Right.
He was able to bring in a lot of talent. He was actually the person that brought Cam Newton to
maybe.
Yeah, the cha-ching possibly could have gotten him in there. New roof on that church up there in Atlanta. Anyway, All right, guys, we'll take a quick commercial break and come right back and wrap this show up with my good friend Brandon Evans, sports anchor here on TV 38, to do our NFL Pick'em segment right here on the Sports Wrap with yours truly, Leland Ragin, Craig Lawson, Brandon Evans. We'll be back. welcome back to the Sports Wrap right here on TV 38 WRWR. Again, I'm your host, Leland Ragin, alongside Brandon Evans, TV 38 sports anchor. And we want you guys to make sure you get into the discussion. We also want to thank our sponsors, Flint Electric, as well as Ashley Home Furniture, Piedmont Orthopedic Complex, as well as Butler Automotive Group. All right, first and foremost, I want to we're going to talk our NFL pick'em, and we're going to do our NFL picks. And I'm going to boast just a little bit, but I'll do that in just a minute. I wanted to obviously mention the fact that a huge tragedy this past week in Kansas City. Kansas City linebacker Belcher, number 59, basically Saturday goes into basically murders and kills his girlfriend, mother of his daughter, 3-month-old daughter, in his home where his mother lived with him as well. His mom made the 911 call as well. Then subsequently goes to the facility, speaks to the coach and GM, thanks them for the opportunity that they gave him, and then turns the gun on himself. Sad scenario right now. That would have been a tough situation if I'm an NFL player to know, and a coach that just witnessed such a situation, to know to go out and play a game the next day.
Yeah, it's got to be tough for the Chiefs, for their GM, the coach, all the way down to his teammates. And, you know, the reports did come out that they had offered him or even provided him some psychiatric help, but obviously Belcher was just a troubled individual and just a terrible, terrible tragedy there in Kansas City. Yeah,
we're going to go ahead and take a listen to the 911 call that was done. His mom actually made the 911 call. Here's what the call sounded like.
Ma'am, let me see if I can help you. Are you with the patient now?
Oh yes, the baby's crying.
Okay.
Please get an ambulance here.
Okay, we're on the way. We've been on the way the whole time. How old is the patient?
22.
A male or female?
Female.
And is he breathing?
She's still breathing, but barely. Please hurry. I don't know how many times he shot her. They were arguing.
Okay, so she's been shot?
Yes.
Okay, right now is she awake?
Yes, stay with me. The ambulance is on the way. You hear me? You hear me? Cassandra! Stay with me.
Okay, listen, ma'am. Is she awake?
She's just barely.
Can you hear what you're saying?
Yes, she's moving when I talk to her.
Okay.
Oh, God.
Is she bleeding?
Yes, she is.
Where is she bleeding from?
I can't tell in the back, it looks like.
Okay, well, we don't want... Go ahead, Petey. Where is your son at?
Yes.
Huh?
Look, please, just get this ambulance here, please.
We're on the way. Where's your son at?
Yes.
All right, again, people, that was a 911 call with the linebacker, number 59, Belcher, for the Kansas City Chiefs. His mother actually making the 911 call. And again, for the death. And again, people, what we want people to understand and make sure they understand is this situation and this guy. There was some discussion earlier this week about the fact that his teammates obviously celebrating this young man's life. It's very hard to obviously celebrate the life of us in this kind of situation when he took life and he took his own life, obviously, and then left his 3-month-old child sitting there without either one of his parents.
Yeah, football is a violent sport, and a lot of these players live violent lives. But who are we to say that we knew Belcher any better than these teammates? I think that they should be allowed to celebrate his life any way that they feel they need to as part of the grieving process. But obviously, what he did cannot be excused.
All right, guys. Now let's get a little bit more exciting. Let's get to a better atmosphere. I'm excited about this moment in time right now. If I'm not mistaken, I was 5-0 on my picks this past week. Obviously, I picked Seattle and I picked Washington versus the New York Giants. So I was able to catch my picks and kind of. You had a great week though. You were 3-2 on this week.
3-2.
That's all. That's money in the bank. 3-2 is better than 2-3 any day of the week. So obviously, you guys need to start making sure you guys hear our picks out because we don't tend to be off too often as far as our picks too much. Let's jump right into our games this week. First and foremost, the Dallas Cowboys with a unbelievable victory last week. They actually had to come from behind to win this game versus the Eagles this past week. They put themselves in a situation now at 6-6, and with the Giants' loss, it kind of helped them out in a situation where the Giants are only 7-5 right now, and they're reeling. Also, I think they've lost 4 of their last 5 games, have the New York Giants. So, Dallas Cowboys versus the Cincinnati Bengals. This game is in Cincinnati. I'm going with the Bengals in this game.
Yeah, I'm also going to take Cincinnati. I took them last week. I think they're one of the emerging teams in the AFC with Andy Dalton and A.J. Green. And that defense, nobody talks about that defense. That defense is really something else. I'm going to take the Bengals as well.
Yeah, Big Mike Zimmer, the defensive coordinator up there in Cincinnati, does a great job. And they've had some unbelievable picks on that team. Obviously, a couple of Georgia Bulldogs, Geno Atkins being one of them on that defensive front. Chicago Bears versus the Minnesota Vikings. 2 teams. Everyone in that division in the NFC North lost this past week. Chicago, Green Bay, Minnesota, and Detroit all lost. That leaves that particular division wide open still. This game is going to have division implications. Chicago at Minnesota. Adrian Peterson, 200-plus yards again last week. Man. This kid is just totally amazing. But I'm going to actually go with the Chicago Bears. And you know what? I'm going to change that one because there are a lot of injuries on this team right now. Matt Forte may be out as well. I'm flip-flopping. I'm going with Minnesota Vikings.
You're allowed to do that at your show. And I'm glad you actually took the Vikings because I'm going to take the Bears. I think Adrian Peterson's coming off a 210-yard game. He's going to be maybe a little banged up. It's about that time of the year where he has his injury anyways. I'm going to take Chicago because I still think they're one of the best teams in the NFC. They just haven't played that way yet this season. So I'm hoping they get hot about this time of year. That way I don't look so stupid, but I'm going to take the Bears.
I think Chicago is posers right now. You saying it's about that time for Adrian Peterson for me to sit him on that fantasy team right now?
No, I wouldn't.
No, what you're saying is you saying he usually has some injuries right now. Any day now. You guys make sure y'all get ready for this on your fantasy football. All right. Baltimore Ravens lose a tough game to 76-year-old Charlie Batch, who's been playing since he played back with
when they had leather helmets.
Yeah, Nagurski and all those guys. All right, but still, guys, Baltimore versus Washington. Baltimore loses to Pittsburgh this past week. Tough loss for them in a very hard-fought game. Always a good game. RG3 goes out there and helps his team in the Washington Redskins beat the New York Giants. They're only a game behind the Giants right now in that division. And I'm telling you guys right now, I honestly believe the Washington Redskins are the real deal right now. If this quarterback can stay healthy and keep doing what he's been doing, I'm going with the Washington Redskins at home versus the Baltimore Ravens.
I do like that pick, but I'm going to go against you only because I think Baltimore was embarrassed last week. I think that they let Charlie Batch, the ageless wonder, beat them. I think they're going to come back more motivated. RG3 and the Redskins coming off that emotional win over the Giants. I think they're going to be a little down. I think the Ravens are going to be a little bit up. I think the Ravens win a close one, something kind of ugly, maybe 26-19.
I like all the little 5-yard out routes that the Pittsburgh Steelers were playing. I'm sorry, last week because Charlie didn't have the arm to hit the ball. All right, guys, Miami Dolphins versus the San Francisco 49ers. Both of these teams obviously having tough weekends. San Francisco losing a tough game, an in-division game to the Seattle Seahawks. I picked that game as well. I just believe in Russell Wilson. I really do. So with that being said, looks like we haven't heard this week who the starting quarterback is going to be. We know who it is going to be up in New York with the Jets, Sanchez, but we don't know if it's going to be Colin Kaepernick or Alex Smith. With that kind of confusion and everything going on right now, I'm actually going to go with the San Francisco 49ers at home.
Yeah, me too. It doesn't matter who's starting at quarterback. Miami's just a mess right now. And San Francisco, I think, has the #1 rushing defense, 1 or 2 rushing defense. And Miami has not been able to run the ball all year, whether it's Daniel Thomas or Reggie Bush. They also have a rookie quarterback, Tannehill, who's having a great season. I still like the 49ers. They're probably, in my opinion, other than the Falcons, the best team in the NFC.
Yeah, I will say this. I think we throw around the word great a little bit too much sometimes with some of these guys.
That's great.
I'm going to tell you something right now. Tannehill's had an okay season. Alex, even Andrew Luck. You can look at what Andrew Luck has done this year. Andrew Luck, 16 interceptions to 17 touchdowns. Even though that his team is winning, I don't want to call that a great season for him because you got an RG3 who's got 17, 18 touchdown passes and only 4 interceptions. People are kind of throwing it out there just because Luck has more wins as a team than Washington. But anyway,
I think that they're asking RG3 to do less than Andrew Luck and Tannehill. I think that they're kind of handling RG3 with kid gloves, but you know, they might need to take those gloves off because RG3 has shown that he's been able to perform above and beyond anything they've asked of him.
Well, hopefully our Atlanta Falcons can take the gloves off this week. They'll travel to Charlotte and play the Carolina Panthers, and the Bizarro Superman in Cam Newton, obviously, who's behind losing games, obviously, to the Kansas City Chiefs. Doing the Superman pose during games, his teammates are sick of this kid. His mindset has not been one of the greatest. This leads back to what we've heard about him being in the locker room when he was at Auburn. He was not well liked at Auburn as well. This situation, this could be an opportunity. Falcons have already wrapped up the division. They've won the division, so that gives them an opportunity. You've got the Falcons, the Denver Broncos, and the New England Patriots who have all won their divisions now. Falcons seem to be able to rest easy a little bit. Here's the one thing I like as well. Mike Smith, after the Thursday night Saints game where you and I had an opportunity to go in the locker room and get a bunch of good interviews, he actually gave them the entire week off until this past Wednesday. So they actually those guys had 5 complete days off. That's much needed rest for our Atlanta Falcons. They'll travel up to Carolina. I think this is going to be a lay-down victory for our Atlanta Falcons. I think they win this game handily.
And normally you think extra time off, coming off an emotional Thursday night game, going on the road to Carolina, who has traditionally played the Falcons pretty tough. You think it could be a trap game. I don't think the Falcons get caught up in a trap game, especially when they're playing Carolina, who's just in total disarray right now. I think Mike Smith, it runs a very tight ship there. They're going to be pumped. They're going to be ready. They're going to win that game, like you said, probably going away.
I think they'll win it going away as well. All right, guys, we'll be going away right here on the Sports Wrap TV 38 WRWR. We'll see you guys. Obviously, that kind of wraps up this segment. Leland Ragin, Brandon Evans. We'll see you guys next Saturday right here from 9 to 10 a.m. on your sports leader, TV 38 WRWR. See you guys. We're out of here.